if I like that. Yeah, yeah, I don't like that. And it's a closed container. I wouldn't do that. Someone wanted to see a full bottle of Topo Chico encased in glass, but I think that's a little bit of a bad idea. Anything that's got trapped moisture is very likely to cause a problem.
Why is the ice cream not in?
All right. So one of our sponsors for the ice cream social is Melt Ice Cream down the street, and they brought over a bunch of delicious ice cream. I believe our next one is going to be pouring a little bit of hot glass into an ice cream cup.
One of our other favorite sponsors.
Thanks, Melt, for sponsoring us. That looks like some delicious ice cream. If you guys have never tried Melt ice creams before, you don't know what you're missing out on. They are down the street on Magnolia Avenue. Really, really great place to be on a hot day like today.
Get a photo of this too.
Is it good?
How's that boric acid and citric acid taste?
So Clifton's got a gathering ball. It looks a little similar to a punty, but it's got a metal ball on the end. And that's going to allow him to gather up a little more glass than a punty will. Hot glass doesn't stick to cold metal very easily, so we are heating up that gathering ball to get the metal nice and toasty before gathering up on the end of that. Now a lot of people ask us about the glass in our furnace, and it is clear even though it looks bright yellow. It is clear. Ooh, gooey. That's a great photo.
Oh, it smells good. We're getting a good smell of stuff in there.
Yeah, but it was the last time when we burnt rubber and other dumb stuff. Oh, the boil over is fantastic.
Yeah.
Got like a nice caramelization to it.
Did you get that photo of the belt?
Yes, absolutely.
The melt is melting.
What are we doing with all this glass?
Melt ice cream is pretty delicious. If you've never tried them, highly recommend. They support us every year for the Ice Cream Social, which is our annual fundraiser for the summer. And Clifton did mention this earlier, but we did
Yeah, can you get enough?
reach our match that we were trying to go for, but we are not yet at our goal. So if you guys are thinking about donating, you want to support us in the things that we're doing to help support us for this summer, please think about donating to us. You can go to our website, and there are many, many ways to donate. Donations help to keep this facility running, so we use them for repairing equipment, maintenance, doing free programming for the public. Things like this are funded by your donations. So all the content that we put online, most of that was funded through donations. So we really appreciate all of your support, and hope you guys will join us for the next Ice Cream Social next summer. Are we doing that? We're doing the Topo Chico lid. So we've got a few different things going on here.
Single gather?
That little, so this little guy is aluminum, right? No, what is it? Steel? Tin? It's made out of some type of metal. With probably a little plastic for that ink.
I'm gonna be right to your right.
And we've got those diamond shears or something.
Clifton's gathering a little bit of glass.
Slippery.
You can see the cold metal resists the glass until it heats up a little bit. So what we were talking about earlier is pretty important. You got to preheat your punties and pipes before you try to gather glass on them, or the glass will want to slip right off.
Logo's still there.
Is it?
Yeah.
No way, really?
Yeah.
There's the seal, the little plastic seal on.
See it? Topo.
That's cool. It's not super visible on film, but
We put the whole thing
the
in
logo
here.
is still slightly visible in there. Most of that color we were seeing on the lid was plastic or paint of some sort, and that's all gonna burn away slash melt away. But pretty cool.
Those might be kind of entertaining. If you don't want these things, you don't want them.
Pretty cool to see how different things interact with glass. We're gonna ladle on this little flower thing.
It's gonna go here first.
Ah, got it. Sorry.
It's gonna go in here, and then we're gonna spread a little bit.
All right. So we've got a little graphite mold. Kevin pulled a big ladle of glass out of the furnace for this. We're gonna spread this glass around.
Want me to pop that bubble or?
Sure, why not? Not that big one.
I'm not fully sure what the experiment is gonna be, but I guess we're gonna find out.
Now we got a little valley.
What's going in there?
Bacon and eggs.
Oh, we're cooking. All right, guys. It's a little past noon, so I think this is brunch time, but we're gonna make some eggs and bacon. Clifton's making a little valley so that the eggs and bacon don't slide around outside of that.
Oh yeah, nice. Nice call. Not too
We're gonna
hot.
check the temperature to make sure it's not too hot, which it probably is.
1307.
1307.
We'll let it get to 500 before we cook. 1279. It's
Now
fine.
the glass cools off pretty fast. Remember,
that'll work good.
we gotta make sure that the glass heats up again. If we're planning on working it again, this glass, as it cools down past a certain point, it's gonna want to crack. That graphite too is soaking up heat from the glass.
I did try to find some not bacon for you.
Aw, so sweet.
My burger sucks. 1122.
It's 11:22. Still a little hot for cooking on, but as this glass gets under 1,000 degrees, we are dealing with the potential for the glass to crack.
In the coin.
There's a point under, or sorry, there's a range where the glass really starts to experience stress. And so we gotta watch out for that temperature zone, but we also can't cook eggs on over 1,000 degrees. So the team is gonna let it cool down a little bit before throwing eggs and bacon into it. All right. All right. So, Brandy, I've had to grab the other camera. What temperature did you say it's at?
It was at 889.5.
889. Still a little hot for cooking, but a lot better than over 1,000 degrees.
Maruko. Yeah, Maruko. Quality Japanese cooking.
The bacon's almost instantly searing.
This is why I microwave my bacon. Proof that hotter is not always better.
Yeah, definitely not. You gotta slow cook those eggs.
Yeah.
Nice medium heat.
Oh, extra crispy.
So definitely some of the funner things we get to do as glass makers is really just play around. Glass temperature is still at around 840.
Or actually 505.
Oh,
Probably get
cool.
the graphite.
Around 500 degrees. What temperature is the stove usually at? Somewhere around 400 or so?
I
on
like
high
cooking my
heat?
bacon at 400 degrees for about 7 minutes.
I do 350.
350?
And I hit it on the boil right at the end. So
Yeah.
it's still soft on the inside. crispy on the
Yeah.
outside.
So definitely still a little toasty. This bacon's looking real crispy.
Best way to eat it.
A little too crispy.
Ooh, crunchy good. I bet we'll fry an egg super fast.
Very crispy. Don't recommend doing this at home, folks. This is not something you see in our studio very often, but quite a fun thing to experience in a glass studio. There's a lot of grease in there.
Spray stud. Yeah.
Now you can see that the glass is starting to crack. We talked a little bit about thermal shock and glass cooling down too fast and what happens when it cools down past a certain point. Almost instantly fried. Just step outside and
4:35
cook.
o'clock a day.
Yeah.
You too can do this.
Cook your eggs on the concrete. This looks like it's closer to stovetop temperature.
I think it's reading.
About 289 or so.
Depends on where you are.
Yeah, somewhere in there. The edges of the glass are almost always going to be cooler than the center.
Whoa, they're like fluffy.
Yeah.
Weird.
We made an implosion bowl. You can do
Kevin
semi-clean.
Kevin came prepared with the spatula.
Yeah, the glass has gotten a little cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it's cracking.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, it's thoroughly cracked.
Big fruit.
No, but I'm probably not going to eat the eggs
yeah, because of the
because of the glass.
little
That
glass
one's probably
crack.
all right, but
Maybe
that
not
one's
that
Just
one.
gotta get it off in one piece and then it'll be alright.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you have that one. I know you will.
Yeah, once the glass is cracked, we don't want to chance
Now I'm hungry.
ingesting little tiny shards of glass. So
Here.
how is it? Crispy?
Yeah, crispy.
Very crispy?
That egg should be alright.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm not gonna eat that one.
No, I wouldn't.
As much as I want to. But
Do you want me to, you want to put it on the plate or what?
no, we'll just trash this whole thing. This thing is big, more handy than I ever thought it would have been.
Yeah,
This thing, yeah, the graphite tray.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Alright, Gene, I'm gonna go over and grate sequoia pine cone.
All right. Do you think that'll pop?
I don't think so. It's pretty dry.
Okay. So we've got this little pod here that Clifton's going to drop some glass over. These things tend to leave pretty cool impressions.
What about the other little knockoff bin? Yes.
And this one's open, so it's not gonna pop. If it does pop, it won't pop too much. But generally things that are very closed up tend to want to explode a little bit.
No.
And Clifton's brought in one that's open. So he's gathering out glass from this furnace.
Right behind you, Gene.
Almost immediately catches fire. And as long as that gassing has somewhere to go, which it looks like it has an exit point,
Yes.
ooh, that looks beautiful.
Let's just set it down on the ground.
Now this one's doing great and not bubbling up too much because as you can see there's a little hole in the side that's allowing the gas to escape from the center. If the glass fully traps an object, then the object has nowhere to let the gas out except from straight up. And so you'll find that objects that are fully encased, they tend to gas and send bubbles going straight up through the glass. This one's going to leave a really, really cool impression. Now it looks like the object is still in there, but By the time we get this back, by the time this comes out of the annealer, there will only be ash left behind. Are you gonna put that away? It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I am gonna save that.
Yeah. So the ash is basically preserving the shape at this point, and then
Gonna nail that
once
after it
this,
goes out.
yeah, once this comes out of the annealer, it's not gonna have any part of that original object in it.
Right, flip it, pull it out.
Now Clifton's torching this piece because the glass is sitting on a metal table, and that metal table is sucking the heat out of it. And they've got to wait for that to stop burning before they put it away in the annealer. Or at least for it to minimally be burning before it gets put away in the annealer. But that also means that it's got to be kept hot. Oop.
I was thinking I might try to get it out, but
Yeah, you got it.
cut it out. I hate to put that in the annealer because it's still very much. It's really pretty though. Texture showed up great.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Should be okay, right?
Don't just smoke out the top.
So Clifton's putting it into the annealer, and that annealer is going to make sure it comes down nice and slow, down to room temperature. That annealer is sitting at about 900 degrees or so. So when we're putting these things away, we got to make sure it doesn't cool too fast down below that temperature. Otherwise, we'll experience cracking of the glass, which is what we're trying to avoid. So the team's here taking a little bit of a breather. We're going to be ladling on top of a couple of more things that we've got in the studio.
Where are we at?
Yeah, what are we going to ladle over a bunch of metal?
This is copper.
It's copper. So copper is one of the metals that works pretty well with glass because they're very, very similar in terms of their expansion and contraction rates. So usually when people are combining glass and metals, they tend to use copper most often.
Go ahead and get a little bit to start, and I'll leave it, and then I'll. Hey, wait, can we do it on this so I can use the hot torch?
Yeah.
Bring the hot pork in there.
Yeah. I just didn't want any, because this is gonna.
So that little steel ring is going to contain the glass so that we get a nice finished round shape. Remember, the glass is going to stick to hot metal, and so we got to make sure that ring doesn't get too hot. So you'll notice that it's nice and thick, which will make it so that we can separate that ring from the glass once we pour the glass in it, and the glass has a little bit of a chance to cool down. So Clifton is gathering out of our furnace again. He's gonna drop a big blob of glass into that ring. T is torching that patty to make sure it smooths out. she's gonna drop that piece of copper in. Ooh, was that actually copper?
Clifton brought it. Don't know. Doesn't
Was
look
that
like it.
actually copper?
Copper wire.
Or was it copper coated?
Really nice wire. I don't know, maybe it's just copper coated.
We're gonna find out. Yeah, it went.
It went silver or gray immediately.
So it does get a carbon
Yeah.
layer on it, but yeah, that's copper. Otherwise, it would have melted.
Got it.
Yeah, we're good. Ready when you are. I heat the edge so that we can get it to try to stick.
They're gonna drop another blob of glass on there. Now the thing about metals is if you put a different type of metal in, even something like steel or any other type of metal, if it's little enough, it'll actually work fine with the glass. It's when they're combined in very, very large amounts that they tend to start to cause problems. Most people tend to use copper, but even copper in very large amounts, or if the copper is very thick, it can cause issues
So we can do on the next one.
where the glass will want to kind of crack away from the metal.
Try to get a little bit more to fill.
The first time.
So that's pretty
that
cool.
We can have a really
Yeah.
good clean edge, and it's a paperweight.
I don't know if you guys can see that little wire squiggle in there. That's pretty cool. Like a little spring.
Got a nice bubble in the spring too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Maybe I'll do this one. That one.
Yeah.
Maybe those two. When you're ready.
So that little puck is going to need to be put away at some point so it can cool down nice and slow.
Let's not wait too long in between. Almost.
That tiny little
Yeah,
puck
ready now.
is going to go into the annealer. All right. Dropping another little blob of glass on top to encase all that metal.
Too much?
No, we're good. Perfect.
Will it come out of there?
Good.
Okay.
If I don't overheat it and get it to fold over.
Yeah. I guess it can always be flipped and pulled off.
Yep, see if it'll slide through. Probably gonna have to flip it.
Yeah.
Not touch that side too. Fire polishment.
So a lot of metals don't work very well with glass, but generally if you keep your metal wire very thin and you're not using very, very big chunks, the glass will kind of tolerate it. Copper wire is the best, and copper sheet is the best for this though, because they cool very, very similarly to the glass. So they're not going to shrink too much more than the glass does as it's cooling down, which is really what ends up causing problems for most metals, is the metal tends to shrink way more than glass does, and it tends to pull away and crack the glass as it's trying to shrink. Now Tatara's just torching this to make sure we get rid of some of the chill marks. anytime we're pouring glass onto a cold surface, we're going to notice that there's a little bit of a texture that gets left behind on the glass surface. So she's polishing some of that out, making it a little cleaner. And then Kevin's going to put it away in the annealer so it survives. What is that?
Silk.
So that's a silk fabric.
Silk fabric.
This was something that someone asked online about too, right?
Try to
Silk
drop a
fabric.
bubble in there and blow.
All right. And silk is a natural fiber. So
Blend though, so it's gonna burn.
it's going to burn and melt.
Probably melt a little. I think it's 80% silk, 20% something else.
Got it. So natural fibers do tend to burn, which is kind of nice because synthetics tend to melt. And so we're going to experiment by blowing into that little bit of silk.
I'm gonna need this step.
Tatara's gathered a little bit of glass on the end of a blow pipe. She's going to shape it up,
The blue one.
and then when she has it into a nice shape, like a little Q-tip, she's going to blow a bubble into it. Now what we're doing today is super experimental. This isn't something that we usually do, but because science is a very big part of SiNaCa Studios, education is as well. We want to bring you something like this once a year. So if you watch this video and you're curious about something, send us some suggestions on what you would like us to try next time. So Clifton's got a little cup of that silk fabric. It looks like it's sewn together with a little bit of copper wire. And Tatara's blowing a bubble, and then she's gonna blow the bubble into that little piece of fabric.
I had it, but then I got
Step here. From here. Like that.
Now, of course, with what we're doing, everything's experimental. So we know the fabric's going to burn. That little copper wire is going to cause a little bit of constricting. But we don't really know exactly what's going to happen, how it's going to burn, whether it's going to leave residue behind, things like that. So Tatara's heating up that bubble, getting it nice and hot. So that didn't really burn like a natural fiber, which means it was probably quite, maybe a larger percentage of a blend.
and it melted to the tweezers.
But when you guys come to take a class, we highly, highly recommend wearing natural fibers for that reason. Synthetics are going to want to melt to your skin, and so they tend to be really not very safe to work with in here. All of us generally will wear cotton or a very, very high cotton percentage when working in the studio. Of course, you can wear any natural fiber that includes silk, wool, although wool might be a little uncomfortable to blow glass in. But any natural fiber will work great for this studio.
Oh, stone. Somebody wanted it stone.
Oh yeah.
This
Stone.
stone is very likely going to want to explode.
Toothpaste, sugar-free, lab toothpaste. Oh, glass stacking.
But it looks like we're going to drop some hot glass onto that rock. Katara's got a long list of the things that you guys requested and what y'all want to see. What about this crystal, this amethyst crystal?
Do that one.
Yeah, I feel like the crystal and the rock probably both might want to explode.
It'll crack a little bit, but probably not enough moisture in there to really be a problem. There might
Alright.
be enough moisture in here to get
Yeah.
hot and to go pop,
Yeah.
but that's probably not terrible.
Now, crystals and glass are really not the same thing. One of the things to know about glass is that it is actually not a crystalline material, which is really good.
Amethyst is compatible.
Is it? That's pretty
Very,
cool.
very close.
So Clifton is saying that amethyst is pretty compatible in terms of its shrinkage and expansion rates. And I've heard that cubic zirconia is also compatible.
The color will burn away though when it goes away.
Got it. That's pretty cool. But what is interesting is that crystals and glass do not have the same molecular structure. So when you're looking at a glass, its molecules are not arranged like a crystal pattern. So even though they look so similar in nature, they really are not. That is pretty cool. So Clifton said that the amethyst color will go away. And it's sure enough, it looks like it's kind of milky. But it didn't pop like I thought it was going to. Does it tend to crack?
Trying to get that spot. It didn't flow there, so I put a curl cue on it.
Does amethyst tend to crack when you put, or do crystals tend to crack probably from thermal shock, or no?
I think a little bit.
Yeah?
Yeah. But the color goes away. I've done this before with amethyst. Somebody came in and wanted to do this.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
They came in and rented the studio, and then they wanted to put amethyst in the work, so we jammed it in the bottom of some cups, and it survived, but it
That's
almost
cool.
disappeared because it went so clear.
The color, yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it does look like it's fracturing.
Yeah, so from thermal shock, a lot of things go through thermal shock, and crystals probably would experience this as well as rocks, where sudden heat change is going to impact them and cause them to crack. That's pretty cool. It looks so geological. All the colors seem to go away from that.
Penny is on the list.
Yeah, copper penny was on the list. Now, pennies are kind of funny, right? Because they used to be fully copper. I don't think this is an old penny. It looks bright and shiny. And it says 2021, so it probably doesn't have very much copper in it. What are pennies made out of now? Is it zinc on the inside and then a little bit of,
Zinc on the inside. Zinc.
and then mostly zinc, and then I think a little bit of copper on the outside. So if you can ever get your hands on a very, very old penny, it probably will stay pretty stable in the glass. Although copper pennies, because the
Yeah, move towards this.
metal content is so very little, probably will be totally fine. Although I'm guessing the color will change potentially. It's a coin and a coin. Looks like something bubbled.
Yeah, it definitely. The copper melted and moved around.
Yeah.
There's a penny. Still on the table.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh. So the penny got
43 is when pennies became cents.
43.
penny got left
The last time
behind.
pure copper was 1857.
1857 was when the last pure copper penny was made.
Yep.
So if you guys find a very, very, very old penny before 1857, that might be worth a shot. Although
Still circulate.
every copper penny I think that's fully copper is probably going to melt into a little puddle, would be my guess. So probably not the best candidate for trapping an image.
2.5% copper in the coin since 1982.
Wow.
2%.
2.5% copper is what is in that penny we just dumped glass on. All right. This thing is gonna probably want to pop, right?
Doubt it.
It's a closed pod. Think it'll be okay?
It's got a crack in it.
Yeah.
It's been in my studio for years,
Oh.
so it's really dried up.
Got it. Only one way to find out. Are you gonna dump a bunch of glass onto it? Okay. So Clifton is gonna dump as much glass as he can onto this. He's using our gathering bowl. He's gonna get it a little bit toasty.
We got some screen printing. Saw that.
Oh, that was me. Rolling a hot glass ball to knock things over. Yeah, Topo Chico bottles. This instead of a punty toss, taking a glass ball and rolling it.
Toothpaste.
Oh, cool. Yes, a hot one. You're gonna try to get some more on there, Clifton?
I think it's just gonna off gas because I sealed it.
Oh yeah.
Look at that texture.
Lots and lots of off gassing.
Yeah, pop that bubble. That's all the bubble.
So like we were talking about earlier, if you don't give the gas a place to escape, it's gonna go right up through the top.
Now it's just an open hole to the thing.
Yeah, that's cool looking.
Toothpaste for Allie.
Oh, cool. Oh yeah, Ali had a bunch of suggestions on there, huh?
You want to encase the toothpaste or
Are we putting the whole tube in?
good?
What is it? It's plastic,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Maybe
think
not.
We just do the toothpaste
Yeah.
itself. Like dump a little blob on the table and then.
Yeah. It's gonna slide around.
Should smell beautiful.
put this one away in the annealer? I'm guessing he will want that.
Keeping or killing? Keeping it or killing it? I keep it.
So one of the cool things that we talk about with glass chemistry is we've got silica, sodium, and calcium. To make a pretty stable glass, that is a basic formula. Glass makes a pretty stable glass. I had Kevin bring an object that he made, which is a very unstable glass. And I'm going to show you guys that in a little bit. So we are making right now a toothpaste.
That's the cutest little toothpaste ever.
We're going to take this little guy,
It's tiny.
tiny,
Tiny little.
and then we're going to put him in a blob of glass. So the toothpaste is going to be squeezed on top of the glass.
That's my thought.
All right. Because it's going to want to slide around. Ooh.
It turned clear.
The moisture in it will want to make it dance around a little bit. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's bubbling and fizzy and all sorts of weird.
It's really hot.
Ooh,
That all ashy.
yeah. Well, that's what's in your toothpaste, folks.
Weird. Look at it growing. It's breathing.
Yeah, something in there is expanding.
Toothpaste. It's blowing right at you.
We are going to do glass bowling. All right, Allie, that one was for you. Yeah, it shouldn't roll against anything flammable, right? Hey, Kevin. So one of the things I wanted the team to do was glass bowling. So we're gonna roll a ball of glass into two balls of glass.
We're gonna kill two birds with one stone. We're
Okay.
gonna see how many times it can bounce.
Oh,
And
cool!
we're gonna try to bowl.
Awesome.
Alright, so now you can get it one more time. After you do that, I'll set it up and start it.
So a couple of the questions I asked actually were, how many times can a ball of glass bounce before it breaks? And can you bowl with glass? So we've got a bunch of Topo Chico bottles on hand we're going to use as bowling pins. And Clifton is going to make us a bowling ball. So glass, when it gets very, very cold, it wants to break. But if it's at the right temperature, it'll tend to want to bounce before it breaks. So if you've ever seen an ornament drop in our studio while it's still warm, you'll notice that it bounces a couple of times before it breaks if it's the right temperature. So Clifton's blowing a starter bubble. He's using the newspaper to shape it. And then he's going to gather another gather on top of that. Well,
This ball.
Make it big. It's not really gonna. You have to blow an ornament and toss it.
yeah, I feel like an ornament
Two in one.
An ornament is the right thing for bouncing, I feel like, because it tends to bounce more.
And I think you could even neck it down and then throw it and tap it.
We've got our bowling pins set up right here.
No, I'm gonna move them. I'm waiting for him to gather so I don't have to do it twice.
Yeah.
And then I'll do a screen print
Oh yeah.
while we're waiting right here.
Awesome.
Actually, before you blow that out too much, roll over a screen print.
Okay.
Cool.
How's that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Dropping on this hard and then let's center off the oil.
Make a little cylinder so
Before you blow it back to the sphere.
yeah, then I can take a cylinder. I think if I treat it right, I can get it back to a wall.
It's gonna be a Superman.
Oh, excellent. Howard.
All right. So someone asked about screen printing, and we've got a screen on hand we're going to use. You can screen print with glass. So T is going to use some colored powder. She's going to push it through this screen, and then Clifton's going to roll up hot glass over that to pick up the image.
Hold on, this is covered in baking grease.
I could use those two rods being elevated quarter-inch off the marker.
I'm just gonna have Kevin hold it. Yeah, will you hold this screen up, please?
Sure.
We're gonna do Superman.
Superman bowling ball.
Okay.
We're just gonna do a little screen print right here.
All right. So Clifton is shaping this bit of glass up. He's got to keep it more cylindrical in shape so that when they roll over the screen print, the glass will pick up.
We're good. We're good at this distance. Because if it's too high,
It'll get fuzzy.
yeah.
Okay, cool. You want a spoon?
We do have
This works. I've done it.
squeegees in the
I
back.
know.
Yeah.
I've done it like this. Is it not the words, is it? It's just the Superman, right?
It's up to you.
And the words are part of it?
They are.
So Tataro's pushing glass powder, and that's colored powder, through this mesh screen. That mesh screen has space in it to allow the powder to come through. We're going to brush away any excess.
Use the words too.
Yeah.
Pull them away.
No, I'll probably pull them away. Ready, Tank?
Yeah.
Away. Okay, I'm ready.
We're ready.
And then the powder is cold, so the glass has got to be really nice and toasty, and it'll pick up just a thin skin of that powder. So some of that will get left behind. Nice. But now we have an image on there. Yeah. So a really nice way to put imagery onto glass. So from here, Clifton is going to blow this out, make it kind of a sphere shape.
Gotta be careful of this marble, it's so lovely.
And then we're going to find out how many times the glass bounces.
Yeah. I'm gonna blow an ornament, tap it across the studio. Maybe we should tap it out in the parking lot. Watch it go towards the road. Kind of fun. Okay, so you're done in the furnace. Let's set up the pins.
So while Clifton is shaping this up, I wanted to ask Kevin about this glass that he brought in. At chemistry, we've talked about silica, sodium, and calcium being really important to making a glass stable in its final form. And Kevin took this awesome class. When was it? Last summer, Kevin?
February.
February.
It was only February.
It was only February. Will you tell us about this cool glass that you made?
Sure. So I went to Tucson to hang out with the guys at SiNaCa Glass. Paul Anders Stout ran a color class, and we spent the week learning how to make different types of color and how to make it compatible with the base glass. This was one of the very first glasses that we pulled out. He didn't tell us what it actually was. He just said, here are the 4 colors you're going to play with, do something with it. And what this ultimately is silica and sodium, but it has no calcium. So everything that's on that white kind of cloudy surface is the physical glass slowly just dissolving in the atmosphere.
That's so cool. When you put it away, was it round in
Yeah,
shape and
it
it's
was.
changed shape since then?
No, it was, I put it away totally round,
Yeah.
and it just had too much heat and it slumped.
Oh, okay.
So it's not the wives' tale of glass continuing to flow after it's cold.
Got it.
That's BS. That would take 1,000,000+ years for that to physically happen. Anywho, no, it was just not knowing what the material was,
Right.
seeing or anticipating what you should see in conjunction with heat and time, and it was not that.
How did this glass move differently from the glass that you work with usually?
It didn't move any differently. It felt the
Didn't?
exact same.
Really? That's
Felt the
pretty
exact
awesome.
same.
That's
But-
super cool. So obviously this will slowly disintegrate over time because it's not a very stable glass. It's not got calcium in it, which is what makes it stable and long lasting. But it's really cool to know how chemistry is really affected. And how glass can be affected just by the different things that you put into it. All right, so I think we're bowling / bouncing ball here. We've got some pins set up, which are our Topo Chico bottles. And Clifton is making a little bowling ball.
Superman bowling ball.
Superman bowling ball. Is this going to be one of the last things we're doing? Is that? Yeah. Oh yeah, that's our finale. That should be our finale. Finale.